Before Israel began dismantling this organization, Hezbollah had a plan called Conquer the Galilee, which was designed to be an even deadlier, more destructive version of what Hamas carried out on October 7, 2023. According to information recently released by the Israeli Defense Forces, or IDF, Hezbollah planned to invade northern Israel and take hundreds, maybe even thousands of hostages. Based on the limited information we have so far, if this was carried out as planned, it would have been magnitudes worse than October 7th. So today we're going to run through what's known of this plan at this point and what Israeli forces have done so far to eliminate that risk. Now, I want to be clear that all of the information that I'm using in this video is coming from the IDF, as in we don't have a Hezbollah or Iranian response to these allegations. That said, it would be a little surprising if either of them outright said that they were planning an invasion of Israel. So I wouldn't hold out any hope for a major press conference from the so-called axis of resistance anytime soon, talking about how their big plans were foiled by Israel. Now, given that we don't have any way right now to verify these IDF claims, it's best to take that into consideration as we proceed, and I'll do my absolute best to provide context as needed. So according to a write-up by the Jewish Policy Center, they say that one of the main lessons for Hezbollah following their last war with Israel was that they would need to change up their tactics if they wanted to survive and possibly win. Apparently, their new battle plans would involve moving into Israeli territory, capturing hostages, and holding terrain where they could establish a temporary advantage over any approaching Israeli soldiers. That plan became known as Conquer the Galilee. Now, the Galilee refers to a region in northern Israel and southern Lebanon, stretching from the Mediterranean Sea in the west to the Jordan River Valley in the east. The plan, from what we can tell right now, was broken down into three main phases. First, the initial invasion. Second, the holding of Israeli territory in the north. And then the third phase, where, on order, Hezbollah would fall back into Lebanon with the hostages or dig in and attempt to seize Israeli territory for the long term. The initial invasion actually had a few unique aspects that are worth running through here. Overall, the invasion was set to be covered by a pretty massive aerial barrage of rockets, drone, and missiles that would rain down on areas all across Israel, from Haifa in the north through Tel Aviv all the way down to Dimona in the south. The idea here was similar in a few ways to what we saw Hamas do on October 7th. The massive barrage that Hezbollah was planning against civilian and military infrastructure would force the majority of Israelis to take cover. So if this could go on for an hour or longer, it would allow Hezbollah ground forces a significant buffer to begin their invasion while most of the Israeli leadership was hunkered down waiting out the rocket attack. Again, somewhat similar to October 7th. Where the Hamas rocket attack didn't stop the Israeli response, but it did slow it down just a bit, or at least enough for thousands of Hamas militants to flow into southern Israel. Same kind of idea here. Then with the Israeli air defense occupied and Air Force likely responded to strike launch sites in Lebanon, the ground invasion would be underway, and Hezbollah actually planned to carry this out in a few ways. First was the use of tunnels that began in Lebanon and passed into Israeli territory. Israel has already uncovered at least one of these and noted that they weren't small underground complexes to house fighters, but instead designed to facilitate the passage of hundreds of fighters under the border and into Israel. These were transportation tunnels, not like set defensive fighting positions. And on that note, actually something to keep an eye on here, if this really is the way that Hezbollah planned to conduct, the Operation Conquer the Galilee, we should expect to see quite a few more tunnels uncovered by the IDF in the near future. There have been countless tunnels already shown in a lot of IDF footage, but as far as I know, there's only been one shown that actually crosses into Israeli territory. Now, one fuzzy area of the plan, so far as I can tell, is that it jumps right from talking about the tunnels to talking about the tasks assigned to the 5,000 Hezbollah fighters once they're inside of Israel. I haven't seen anything where it says Hezbollah would overrun outposts or flood across the border into Israel. So either that part wasn't yet disclosed, or the idea is that the tunnels would facilitate the flow of 5 full brigades into Israel. So just something there to keep in mind. Now, before getting into the Hezbollah objectives, which are broken out by brigade, I should mention that it was also stated that up to 150 fighters were set to conduct an amphibious assault with speedboats on the Israeli town of Nahariya. This town is along the coastline and just 5 kilometers from the Lebanese border, so it's not as though this was some major long-distance landing operation, but more of a raid to hit a nearby target, grab some hostages, and then likely pull them back into Lebanon. All right, so shifting into the detailed plans here, broken down by brigade, Israel says that Hezbollah planned on 5,000 fighters taking part in the assault phase of Conquer the Galilee, split into 5 distinct organizations. The 1st Brigade was set to take control of the city of Nahariya, or parts of it, after crossing the border in the Rosh Hanikra area. According to Hezbollah's information, the defenses in this area were minimal. The distance is short, only about 7 kilometers, and there are no special military or topographical features that would delay the brigade from achieving its objectives. Remember, this is also the area where Hezbollah is going to use speedboats to hit targets right along the shoreline. The 2nd Brigade, then, of the Hezbollah Radwan forces was set to take control of the town of Shlomi, which had a population of around 6,500 and is located only about 300 meters from the border. The goal here was to sever the IDF supply lines and force it to send reinforcements from the east to areas of northern Israel where a large number of military forces were located. The 3rd Brigade then was set to reach the city of Carmel, which I'm probably mispronouncing, Carmel or Carmel. Anyways, they said that they were supposed to take control of the city and areas south of it in order to block movement from the Mediterranean coast to Safed. This was a big push now. We're talking about Hezbollah, roughly 20 kilometers inside of Israel. The 4th Brigade then would take control of a couple different towns right along the border, Malkia, Ramot, Naphtali, and Yiftach, to prevent the IDF from conducting fire from those areas into southern Lebanon. And finally, the 5th Brigade was set to serve as a strategic reserve force to be deployed as needed. So that is a 40-kilometer front that they sought to open up with Israel, and in some areas, nearly 20 kilometers deep. Now, in recent operations, the IDF has put out statements saying that current ops in southern Lebanon have worked to dismantle military capabilities of Hezbollah's Radwan force, who they say were the ones preparing and responsible for the Operation Conquer the Galilee. There's been a lot of footage already at this point, to include the IDF releasing a map found in a Hezbollah compound that the group had supposedly planned to give out to its operatives before the invasion. The map marked Israeli communities, IDF outposts, as well as access roads and possible targets for the attack. The IDF spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, just put out a long video showcasing some of what was uncovered in a, quote, house in southern Lebanon. Actually, let's take a look at that one here real quick.
We are now in a Lebanese village, a Shia village in Lebanon. This village is one of the villages close to the Israeli border. I want to show you a Lebanese house, a Lebanese in a Shia village house, close to our border. Every house is a terror base. I wanted you to see in your own eyes what we found here today. This is our forces raiding on this village. Come with me. In this house, a storage of gear, waiting for Hezbollah's Radwan forces, with vests, helmets, night vision, mines you can see here.
I mean, it's not much of a house, right? Maybe from overhead imagery, it looks like a house, but this is very clearly just military storage.
Already, all of these weapons here were stored and piled in the house, ready for the big raid. The raid plan called Conquer the Galilee. They plan to do a massacre in a larger scale than the 7th of October on northern Israel. And with this gear over here, I want you to see what kind of a gear. You see the hand grenades here? Sniper rifles, extremely high sniper rifles, shooting on our forces, shooting on our civilians from far away. Look at those sniper rifles here. All was ready for the raid. Explosive RPGs here. This is one of the PK fired by the terrorists of Hezbollah on our forces raiding on this house. This is a terror base. This is a Lebanese village, a Shia village built by Hezbollah. Every house has gear ready for the raid against Israel. Conquer the Galilee plain. We are now going a house through house, raiding each and every house, taking all this gear, dismantling Hezbollah's capability to do the Conquer Galilee plan.
So clearly it's a lot of equipment, and we're getting countless videos coming out of southern Lebanon from the IDF showing building after building, house after house, finding weapons, storage, communications equipment, mines, mortars, ATGMs, all of the stuff that would be needed if they wanted to carry out an attack like Israel's claiming they were planning to do. Now, a few things here are worth keeping in mind. Israel has evacuated nearly 100,000 residents from the northern portion of the country, so it's not clear that if Hezbollah were to carry out this plan today, just how many citizens they'd be able to take hostage. So if hostage-taking was a key component of this Hezbollah op, you have to think that maybe they placed it on hold, waiting for Israel to feel safe and then move their people back north. Again, I do want to stress right now that everything we're going off is exclusively information coming from the IDF. It does generally line up with past threats from Hezbollah, as well as the tunnels, supply depots, and weapons being uncovered in southern Lebanon. But that's always the challenge with a preemptive style attack, if that's what we're going to call this. Yes, there appears to be plenty of evidence that this was going to take place, but of course we never actually know for sure until something actually happens. Clearly, that was a risk that Israel didn't want to take, and as soon as they had the men and the resources to dedicate up north, they took the fight to Hezbollah to ensure this type of cross-border raid was no longer an option. But that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.